Hi, welcome to the Rittner Floral School in Boston, Mass. I'm Dr. Steve Rittner, and it's a pleasure to welcome you into one of our classrooms today. At Rittner's Floral School, we believe that just about every aspect of human experience can be enhanced, illustrated, and made even better through the use of floral art. Right now, we're getting close to the July 4th holiday. It's our opinion that floral designers really haven't utilized July 4th to full advantage or have really used it to the best advantage with their floral art. There are so many different things that you can do with flowers that really enhance July 4th celebrations. And so in this particular video, what we're going to do is show you an inspirational video of a wide range of different kinds of styles and approaches that could be used for this great holiday. Our staff has been working really hard to prepare for this, and we have some really great things to show you. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. We're going to start off with something fairly simple. This is a typical design that designers make and that people enjoy. It could be used for parties, it can be used for table centerpiece work, and so forth. It consists essentially of a glass container, a cylinder. We have inside the cylinder some aspidistra leaves going around, and we have a lovely little round mound kind of design. And notice that again we're getting the concept of July 4th in primarily through color here. We've got the reds through our carnations and our pink mini carnations. We've got the white through our palms, and we also have some blue through the use of some of our larkspur. It's a pretty little design. It's a very simple design. This is just to get started. We've got a lot more that we want to show you. Now, I want you to see, my viewer, how we can take this concept of the round mound and take it from a very classical expression to something a little bit more elaborate. So, for example, here we've got another round mound, a little bit bigger. But notice, if this is our starting point, look at the way we can evolve and do some really cool things. In this particular case, we also have a round mound design, but the round mound is a little bit different. In this particular case, and I have a flower that seems to be moving around on me, here we go. In this particular case, notice the mound here is not quite as classical as the first one. In this one, we've got a variety of interesting things going on. First of all, we've got our red, white, and blue illustrated through a wide variety of materials. We've got our blue hydrangea here. We've got white roses in here and here throughout the design. We've got red illustrated through our red carnations, through red roses through the arrangement, and also through some of our red spray roses. It is an absolutely gorgeous design. And what makes this design, I think, especially interesting is the way some of our foliage is being used. Notice that some of our larger foliage, aspidistra leaves and tie leaves, are being used, turned around, curled into folds, placed throughout the design. A little bit of our salal or lemon leaf placed here, and then taking some of our bear grass and making loops of bear grass and working it here and there through the design gives a really interesting look to this. This is an arrangement that would go very nicely in a bay window. It would work well in an entry area. It would work well on a coffee table. It is not a tiny design. It's a fairly good size design, and as you can see, it gives just amazing value. And it is what I would consider to be a very contemporary rendition of a traditional idea done a little bit bigger than our traditional design. Really cool. Well, this is getting started. Let's see what other ideas that we have, because we have a lot of different things we would like to show you today in terms of different approaches for Independence Day through floral art. And I hope that these ideas kind of spark you in terms of some of your own designing. Here's one that is what I would call a classical high style kind of arrangement. Classical high style. It's pretty. It gives us something with, again, a variety of different materials. We have our blue hydrangea here. We also have a cremone that has been kind of tinted. It's tinted light blue with a little bit of red worked into it. So we have our blue in the design. Our red is through our carnations here. And we also have some mini gerberas that are absolutely gorgeous that add to the effect. And then our white through our white roses. It's a pretty arrangement This would work well on a mantelpiece. It really works very nicely. Notice that although we're playing with a red, white, and blue motif, the container happens to be a silver container, which is pretty achromatic, and it works very, very nicely, and it gives kind of a contemporary kind of flair to a classical kind of piece. Now, let's come up with a matching piece to this, because we are playing with a very, very neat kind of container. Here is another design that also uses a matching container. Notice, again, the silver achromatic idea here, but it's matching because of the fact that we're using the red, white, and blue motif. These could be used very effectively in several parts of the home because they kind of tie together nicely with a patriotic theme. But in this particular case, some very, very interesting things are going on. It is a very, very funky design. In this particular design, what we have here is definitely something that's high style, but it happens to be a diagonal. The diagonal arrangement is what we call almost like an arrow. It's very, very dynamic. Notice the diagonal. It almost is pointing a line. And in this particular case, from lower left to upper right, we've got the hydrangea in the middle, the blue hydrangea in the center, and then the use of our delphinium over here and over here helps to create that dynamic kind of line effect through here. But we have some other neat things going on here too, because we've got a lot of use of red in this design. And the red comes through with our carnations, through our spray roses here and there, and yes, even through our mini gerbs placed in place. And then to create a counterpoint to the strong linear effect of this design, some wire that happens to have little red, white, and blue stars is wrapped in through the design, which gives a contrast. The foliage, some of our Floral foliage, it is a very, very neat design, and it shows that even though this is a kind of a classical, linear, high-style kind of piece, notice that the way this thing is put together really gives a rather funky and very, very contemporary effect. It's a cool design. Here, let's show you something else. Also, kind of a linear thing, but a little bit more what I would call on the simple, more minimalistic kind of view. This is a design that is very, very pretty, and it's linear in effect, but it's much more simple, a lot less content in terms of it. Ooh, we have a petal falling off. That's not so good. And let's take it and take a look at it. First of all, our container. Our container is a very, very neat container. There's been a return to very, very natural kinds of containers. We're seeing containers covered with moss, containers covered with birch bark, containers covered with all kinds of cloth or fabric materials. These are really, really neat. They give a beautiful effect, and they're really, really nice, and it gives a very natural kind of thing. And then in this container, we happen to have, again, the patriotic theme played with color with our blues and our reds. We've got here some of our delphinium shooting out here and up here. We've got some blue hydrangea tucked in deep, and then the use of a couple of carnations and a few of our mini gerbs. It's linear, it's minimalist, it's very, very pretty. It gives a very, very natural feel, and a lot of people love this kind of look. I love it. I think this is great, and this one is going to end up upstairs in my apartment because I think it's just such a neat, neat design. Now, let's see what else we have here. Oh, this one. Also a variation on the linear theme, but again, this is not, line arrangement evolves and it changes, and it's not always the staid kind of thing that perhaps you associated with a prior generation. This is a design that definitely has a diagonal, but it's not the same kind of diagonal as in the last one. The diagonal that you saw in the last one went from upwards, downwards, all the way down, and it extended from one side to the other. In this particular case, we've got a diagonal that's kind of shooting up over here, but doesn't complete the diagonal, and in fact gives a counterpoint with a little bit of vine that happens to be twisted and turned so that it really kind of gives a kind of a counterpoint to it. It's very, very neat, making use of some of our white snapdragon, a combination of red and white roses, a couple of hydrangea almost as a focal, and then this kind of wild thing using some of our ivy vine. It's very, very pretty, and it has a very, very dynamic feel to it, and then shoots around with this. A very, very cool contemporary version, as it were, of some of our linear kinds of ideas. I think you can see, my viewer, there can be many, many different looks for July 4th type designing, and I think that that's the key factor here. Designs don't have to be the staid kind of roundy things that we've associated. We can do all kinds of different shapes. We can come up with all kinds of different looks. Now, how about this? This is a really, really neat one. I think that this is a very, very pretty arrangement, and I want you guys to see it and enjoy it. Again, more of a minimalist kind of look on this one. Getting in the concept, of course, of the red, white, and blue here. We've got our blue delphinium shooting here, coming in here, bringing our eye down to the front part of the design. A couple of our white roses coming in here, red down in the baseline through our red carnations, a white football chrysanthemum with a touch of red and a little bit of blue on the paint, and then some of our curly willow curled in here and curled in here. So notice that we're taking this concept of taking some of our vines and branch materials and curving it. It is a very, very similar kind of an approach, if you think about it, to what you saw in the last design. If you think about what you noticed on the last piece when we had this one and you had this curved thing on the side, well, in this particular case, we're doing a very similar kind of thing, but it gives a very different look through the way that this is layered. Some of this is above, some of it's down below, curling around the back. A more minimalist look. It definitely has the look of today. Very, very cool. And notice we're using in this design some very traditional materials. Sometimes people complain about the use of things like carnations or roses or chrysanthemums. I would say it's not what you use, it's the way you use it. And this definitely illustrates that quite well. Let's find something else, because again, we have some very, very neat things for you guys to look at, and I think that you'll really, really enjoy it. Here's a design that I'm going to put in front of you, and I'm just getting it right here to place in front of the camera. This is an interesting arrangement. This is an interesting one. It's in a utility container, and it's more what I would call a garden type thing. In other words, it simulates natural growth. It's very, very one of these kind of things that has different sections to it. It's got a little base here with some hydrangea, white hydrangea, some blue hydrangea, and then the white continuing up from our white hydrangea with the use of the white snapdragon. And on the side where we've got the blue hydrangea, we have some delphinium coming up here, a little bit of red here in the center through some spray roses, and also some dried palmettos that are really, really cool. And then to extend the height of the design, because you really don't see it totally there, notice that we've got some curly willow really shooting up to kind of give a wild look. So this is a kind of a natural growth kind of thing. Many people love this kind of look. It's very, very easy to achieve. It gives a very, very rich kind of an effect as well, because when you look at something like this, you really see some things concentrated. It gives a really, really cool effect. But wait, there's more. We've got a few other things we want to show you. Again, showing you the various kinds of ways that we can illustrate and enjoy the July 4th holiday through the use of flowers. And we had to get at least something done. We wanted to get something done that shows definitely a water-based kind of an approach. Now, normally when we think in terms of water-based designing, we are thinking in terms of, you know, that kind of vase with kind of a cluster, a moundy cluster placed into it. And we certainly can do that. It gives a very, very pretty effect. But we wanted to do something a little bit more kinky here. And we definitely have a more kinky contemporary version of water-based. It's not for everybody, but some people will love it. Some people may say, it's an acquired taste. But I think you should keep your options open on this. We have an oval-shaped container. We've used this container in a lot of designing in the past in some of our videos, and also on Facebook and on the web. It's a neat container because it's kind of oval. And we've got, again, sections with white in terms of our hydrangea, some carnations in the red, and then some of our delphinium over here on the side. The delphinium is also combined with some of our curly willow that's kind of intertwined in it. And then all of this interesting branchy stuff that we have intertwined through the whole design is kiwi vine. It really gives a very, very cool effect. So if you like modern art, if you like very, very contemporary kinds of things, you may want to consider something like this, because it does give a very, very neat look to our design, and it shows that designing in water certainly does not have to be staid or conservative. It gives a very, very cool effect. Okay, what else do we have? We've got a couple more things I'd like to share with you, my viewer, because I think they're really, really cool. We've been showing you some high-style designs, linear type things, in this presentation. And here is a very, very neat high-style arrangement. I think it's very, very neat. We've got, again, the combination of red, white, and blue. You'll notice that in this presentation, most of our July 4th concept is brought about primarily through color. We're playing with red, white, and blues, and you can see we go from one extreme to another in terms of our styling. This is a contemporary high-style design. In effect, it's really kind of a variant on a horizontal, but the horizontal is elevated. It isn't totally long, so we sometimes in the trade call these long and lows. If you were to see this in a container flat on the table, it would not appear quite as dramatic, but by elevating this horizontal motif, bringing it up, sticking it on a circular, very contemporary kind of vase, it really looks quite cool. It is, again, using the concept of the red, white, and blue, with white for our hydrangea, white roses placed here, red in terms of our carnations, carnations over on this side, pardon me, and red roses over here. Notice the carnations are clustered over on this side, the roses here. It's a very, very good trick when we can cluster different sections and different type. So we've got our red carnations here, we've got our red roses here, and then we also have with the white, our white roses intertwined. So this section is rose, this section is carnation, the hydrangea breaks it in half, and then to provide unity through the whole thing, the blue of our statice. Statice is a filler material or an accent flower, and it works so well here, it really makes the design. And then the use of the vines. These are essentially ivy vines. We've been asked where these things come from, and we're using a variety of branch materials in this presentation, both the ivy vine, the kiwi vine, and also the curly willow. They work so well, and these are definitely elements that modern floral designers like to play with. I think it's a very, very cool version of horizontal vase arrangement technique. It feels totally different when it's elevated. And again, this kind of design can be used in so many places. I could see this one on a mantle, in a bay window, in an entry area. It definitely says July 4th with style and with a lot of class. I have one more design, my viewer, that we'd like to share with you. And it's really cool because, again, I think it illustrates the many different facets of this holiday. If we're going to do all kinds of different things, this is another concept in terms of linearity, but in this particular case using a novelty kind of container. July 4th is definitely during the summer, and if we're thinking in terms of summer, I don't know about you, but I think in terms of summer sports, people riding their bikes and so forth, and we have here a really, really neat, what I call a novelty container. It's a novelty container made of wicker, and it illustrates a bicycle. It's a little bicycle cart, and then making use of our materials, again, getting the concept of reds and blues that tie in so nicely with the holiday. It is linear, but you'll notice that it is not linear of a past generation. It's very, very open and airy. Lots of negative space worked in between the flowers. And again, if you look at it, the blue formed by hydrangea, very, very popular flower at the present time. Some of our delphinium shooting out on either sides. And then red with a few red roses, a little cluster of red roses right here. Also some of our red carnations coming in here, coming in here, coming in here, coming like this from the different angles right into the focal area. And then a little bit of our salal to cover our mechanics. What do you think, my viewer? Pretty cool, huh? It really, really gives a nice effect. Well, my viewer, we've covered a lot of ground in a very short period of time. We hope that this inspirational video will inspire you to take reds and blues and whites and to play with a variety of different things, whether it happens to be a novelty container like this, glassware like the oval, or taking some of our concepts of either garden, minimalist, or high-style designing and apply them in your floral art for this amazing holiday. On behalf of all of us here at Rittner's Floral School, we've been working very hard, our staff, to present this to you. We want to thank everybody involved. On behalf of all of us, we thank you for coming in and visiting with us today.